All right, I'm Cody with Paranormality Magazine. I'm here with Kalani Ghost Hunter here at the famous Bell Mansion in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Kalani, thank you for sitting down with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So, how did you, or what got you to decide to become a paranormal investigator?
So, it all started back when I was 11, and I was on a Boy Scout camp out at the Shiloh Battlefield in Tennessee. And we were out running through the woods, wreaking havoc. And I come across what I thought was a reenactor at the time. But I talked to this little drummer boy, and then I watched this drummer boy dissipate into the air. So that was my first experience with something that I couldn't explain. And from that point on, there was an interest in the paranormal, and it wasn't really a question of if the paranormal was out there, it's how can I find that again. And that kind of got me more interested in taking in more content from people that were doing that very thing. And then fast forward 12 years after that point, and I made a video on TikTok and made a series of videos on TikTok, and then it just took off.
2.8 million followers, all organically.
Yep.
You did it, you and your wife, you come to these locations, you go to these locations that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to go to, and then you live stream them. And I've been caught up in your lives before. They're fun, and you get some really good evidence. Like the other night, obviously it's not a subscriber one. You got banana as an EVP. You asked the spirit here to say banana, and it said banana. So would you say, what is the craziest thing you've caught as an EVP?
EVP wise, it's very graphic. Like, it cuts me out. It says FUPUSSY, but it's still probably the clearest voice I've ever caught. That one was I've had some decent ones, but that one would be the only one that I would say is like Class A, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, it is very clear, it's very human tone. That's probably the clearest EVP. And then the craziest thing that we've had happen recently was we were investigating a estate in Kentucky, and we have something sprinting at us that we couldn't see. And on camera you can hear it, because I'm just standing there doing an EVP session, and you just hear, and you see me jump, because normally nothing like that ever happens, at least to that extent. So to hear like wind moving and steps running towards you, and then you look and there's just nothing there, to capture that with two different cameras on two different angles, pretty wild.
That would have scared me. I probably would have screamed like a little girl. I've been known to scream like a little girl during investigations, especially at Indiana State Sanatorium. I've had a couple of experiences there. You were just there last weekend, actually, at ISS Con 2. Did you have anything crazy happen to you while you were there?
Not last week. I will say that as much as I love cons and events, it's so much more enjoyable when it's just you in the building. When me and Savannah are the only people going somewhere, it makes a very big difference. I don't know if it's the spirits are more comfortable because there's not that comfort in numbers, or if you're just more attuned to the environment because there's not any other environmental noise coming from people. But I will say we didn't have much last week, but there was also like 100 and something people there. So even if we could have had something crazy happen and wouldn't have known that it was paranormal.
And that was actually, ISS was my first ever investigation. I did one of those public ones through Ghost Hunts USA, and we all know about that.
Yeah.
What got you, okay, first off, before I ask that question, why TikTok?
Well, so TikTok, it's kind of like the Wild West when I started. I mean, there was people that were doing paranormal, but I never wanted to be a content creator. When I posted my first video, it was because my wife said, you should post it. I was interested in the paranormal and was just doing it, helping out another event company on the side, just so I could investigate when I had time. And it was just a hobby that I would indulge in every now and then. And the only reason it turned into what it is today is because my wife said to post a couple videos and see what people thought of it, because she thought it was cool.
So you owe Savannah your whole career, and now it's a career. You're doing this full time. You go to these places. You're here you know, you were here the other night, but you're here last night and tonight you're doing these events. People get to come and meet you and get to investigate with you. That is, you don't see a lot of people doing that. I mean, there are people that do, but how you treat your fans in your community is positive. And that's something we need in the paranormal community, because there's a lot of people that are just here for views and here for money. And they don't care about the fans, but then you're here just because you love doing it and you love meeting your fans. So why, or what got you started going to these places and just hosting events?
The event aspect kind of came later, because people are always like, I want to investigate with you. But whenever you're somewhere and you're trying to like film or even live stream, it's very difficult to focus on that when you have other people around. So I had the idea to do events because, one, that's kind of where I started in the paranormal, was guiding people through locations at events, and I was very familiar with that. But just people want to come and go to these places, but they don't want to pay for a full private, or they're too scared to go to a private. And sometimes a lot of these locations you go to a public and it's just too hectic. So like ours, we try and limit how many people can come, because then the experience is better for those that do get to come. Because smaller groups, it's a lot easier to investigate. So we had the event idea because so many people wanted to go with us, but I wasn't necessarily comfortable doing that in the setting of just join me on a live stream.
Okay, and you've done this here before at the Bell, and the Bell keeps inviting you back for more, because every time you have a crowd. Like, it wasn't even opening until what, 3 o'clock, and there were people already lining up outside to get in to meet you. I mean, that just shows you the dedication. And then, you know, you've got your Discord, which I'm a member of. I'm in there reading these comments and these statements from these people, and they love you. I mean, like, you're doing stuff right. And what would you say, and you don't have to answer this, what would you say your biggest pet peeve in the paranormal community is?
You know, honestly, there's so many things that I could say, but the one that I think resonates the most with me day in and day out is, in a field that's entirely theory, none of us really have the answers. We have an idea of what the answers could be, and we have an idea of what our answers could be in this field, but at the end of the day, I'm not more right than somebody that's been doing it for 30 years or somebody that's been doing it for 30 minutes, right? So we all have our experiences, and that's what we base a lot of our knowledge on, is things that we've experienced, but that doesn't make the experiences accurate in a broad sense of the term. So I think the biggest thing for me is it's a very ego-based field, and I've noticed that very early on, especially when people are like, you know, I've been doing this for 20 years and I've never encountered anything like that. Right, that's always like the amount of time someone's been doing it's like the easiest trigger. But then you start like digging below the surface, and you're like, okay, you've been doing it for 20 years. How many investigations have you been on in 20 years? And they're like, well, you know, 1 year we went twice, and then, you know, a couple years we did once every month. So even if you did once every month for 20 years, you were still at about a fourth of what I've done in 2. But I don't measure it up like that, because who walks around being miserable? But for me, it's just about, I think there's not a lot of openness to different interpretations or different approaches to the paranormal. Like, there's a lot of people that get very set in the way that they do things, and any other perception or viewpoint or outlook just seems invalid to them, but it just doesn't seem very smart to do it that way, because, again, like the biggest one's the demon thing, right? People always say, well, there's no way there's a demon there. I've gone there 100 times and I've never encountered something. But who's to say that it took the right person in the right circumstance at the right time to have that experience? Are you going to tell that person their experience is invalid? Or are you going to say that you've been there so many times and this is why it's the way it is? That's the thing, is it's like none of us know for certainties on any of this stuff, right? If I gave you a piece of paper and said, tell me what a demon is, you would have your perception of what it is. And then I give you a piece of paper and tell me what a demon isn't, you're not going to know. And it's just going to be your perception of that environment. So that's my thing, is I think the field gets very cluttered, and a lot of people get on this one-track idea, and then they bash people that have a different viewpoint. But that's the wrong approach to a field that's entirely theory.
Exactly, and what's the great thing? And I've witnessed. I mean, you've had your fair share of controversies, people, calling you out or mad about how you do things. But this is supposed to be a community. It's the para community, and we're supposed to encourage one another. There are people that I would investigate with, but I just don't like how they do things. But I'll still go investigate with them. I'll still because I'm still learning. I mean, I've only been in it for a year. And you've been in it for what, 2 years?
4 years total, but 2 years as a content creator. Yeah.
2 years as a content creator. So you, in the grand scheme of things, you're new, but you do things differently than other people, and you're always trying something new, and that's what you got to do. What works for you, because what works for me might not work for you, or even work for Savannah either. So what was your piece of advice to somebody that that's either reading this interview, watching this interview, or someone that follows you that wants to get into the paranormal but is just kind of scared because it does seem like there is a lot of drama?
I would say really understand your intent. Like, are you wanting to make content because you want to make a career out of something? Are you wanting to make content because you want not only a way to document it, but if that does take off, then you have a career? I think the intent of why you're doing this is what really sets you apart, right? So when I started this, I had no intention of it turning into my job, and it turned into my job. But I know quite a few people that are looking as an opportunity to make a career, and it just seems very ingenuine because they're not necessarily interested in what we're doing. They're just interested in the fame and what comes with it, I guess. But at the end of the day, I think the intent on why you're doing this is what will guide you in the best way for you to investigate. So if you're just wanting to investigate with your friends and experience haunted places, you don't have to record that and post it. You can record that as a way to review evidence, but you don't have to feel like you have to post it to be a paranormal investigator. A lot of people will never post a video and they'll go home and review footage for months on end. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's just figuring out what your goal is as an investigator, right? If your goal is to experience these places in person, which I love history. Like, before I ever got into this, I was big into history. So a lot of these places have so many stories, and that was one big appeal to me, even before I got into the paranormal aspect, was I'm going to places that have such a rich history. I'm literally going to places that people will read about in books for years to come. So that was one really appealing factor, but I think that's what the big difference that people need to realize is if you get into this with the intent of becoming famous, odds are you're probably not going to become famous. You have to, like with me, it was always about transparency and being authentic with the people watching. Because when I live stream, it was because I wanted somebody that was sitting on their couch to experience this place in real time, and they didn't have to deal with the fluff of TV and the ad breaks and all of this crap surrounding it. They could just experience it for the good, bad, and the ugly, right? Because there's a lot of times where we're just sitting there in the dark and there's nothing happening. But that, if you talk to anybody, that's how it goes. I mean, there's going to be times where you sit there and nothing happens, and you go to places and very little activity. But that's the honest truth. So that would be my advice, is to figure out why you want to do this. And right, what cracks me up is people that they go after folks. They say, oh, they're just doing this for the clicks and the views. Yet they post a weekly YouTube video every week trying to get people to watch it, and no one watches it. So they're not getting clicks and views, trying to get people to get clicks and views, but then they're getting pissed off at people that are getting clicks and views. So don't be bitter. That's another piece of advice, is just be happy for people's success, and don't be bitter about it.
Now, what do you feel about, there are some people in the paranormal community that fake stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Does that bother you in the fact it kind of gives you a bad name and then gets people questioning whether you're faking stuff?
In the beginning, it really bothered me. But I had a really good conversation with a few different people, and then this is kind of my stance on it now, is if somebody watches a YouTube video of somebody that's blatantly faking stuff, but they get somebody interested in the paranormal, even in the slightest bit, that would have never watched it before, and that leads them to another content creator that isn't doing that, the contrast of the two pieces of content will eventually weigh themselves out, right? When you watch one and you've got stuff flying across the room and crazy stuff happening, and then you've got one where the guy is getting excited about getting a voice on a recorder, right? That contrast juxtaposed next to each other is going to eventually present questions for the viewer. But it's not my place to go after people that fake stuff, because at the end of the day, if they're bringing 20 more people into the paranormal, even through their content, my hope is that they'll find somebody else that is creating more authentic content. But at the end of the day, like I said, I used to be very, very like angry. I would just go after people and I'd be like, oh, this person's fake, yada, yada, yada. But then I started working with some of these people that so many people tried to tell me they were fake, right? And they didn't do anything that I don't normally do. It's just that they didn't fake anything. So I'm like, okay, this person's never met this person, and they see what the perception online is. I've met this person, I've worked with this person, and then none of that happened. So I'm like, am I going to believe what my experience was in person? Or am I going to believe what this person's perception of somebody else is online? So there's fake stuff out there, but at the end of the day, I think as long as it's bringing more people into this field, it's more of a help than it is a hindrance. Because a lot of people look at it from well, it's hurting all the genuine investigators. I mean, maybe, but it also could be helping genuine investigators, because if you're genuinely getting responses and you're not creating this evidence, then it's going to be that much of a confirmation for somebody. But at the end of the day, regardless if you live stream, if you post, produce, somebody's still going to say you're fake. Like, I mean, I live stream and I have people tell me it's green screen and CGI, and I'm like, there's nothing even happening, so this is a really bad CGI job.
And you touched on it when you said that, you know, there are people where stuff's flying, and I've been on investigations, both residential and going to locations where stuff does move or a door slam. I have a residential case here in town. I literally watched the door slam. Didn't get it on video because I'm not there for video content. I'm there to help the family. But and I tried to debunk it, like, is there a draft? But no, the door literally slammed, and I was on FaceTime with another investigator, and he saw it happen. So it's like, that's the stuff that everybody thinks is what paranormal's all about. But I'm the type of person, if I get one of my cat balls to go off, I'm excited that the cat ball's going off, because there are times you sit there, like you said, several hours, nothing happens. You could be on an investigation for 10 hours and you only get 45 minutes of activity. Does that mean that the place is not haunted? No, it's just, the spirits are not circus monkeys. We try to communicate with them, try to get our stories. That's what a lot of us are doing this for. But at the end of the day, when you get that little piece of evidence, you're like, I got it. So what would you say was obviously you said the little drummer boy just disappeared. Is there any other evidence that you captured or whatnot that was like 100% convincing? Yes, the paranormal's real. Or was it that drummer boy? The drummer boy was the one that even today I still lean back on, and it's like my moment that it wasn't, if that stuff's out there, it's how can I find it again? So like, even from that point on, I believe that the paranormal is out there. It's just now I found that it is a lot harder to have that experience. I've seen a few shadows, like out of all the places I've been, probably 3 instances where I've seen physically something with my eyes in the environment, and then you check and then there's nothing there. But that stuff's not very common. I've had a door shut before, and I've had items move very, very seldomly. So it's like those moments do happen, but I can count on 2 hands how many times I've had something like that happen. And you got to think, there for 2 years, there would be times where I'd go to 4 different locations in a week. So I've been to hundreds of places, and I'm still saying I can count on 2 hands when I've had something like that happen. But that's why when it does happen, it makes it that much more cool, I guess, because it very rarely happens that way. Yeah, and now have you gone back to that battlefield and tried to communicate with the little drummer boy, or Are you scared to go back to?
It's not a fear of the battlefield, it's a fear of the U.S. government because it's a national park.
Gotcha.
And the national park and paranormal just do not mix very well. They don't like Gettysburg, for example. If you get caught out on the Gettysburg battlefield at night, it's big problems. So maybe I could go back in the daytime just for myself. I probably wouldn't even film it, but just for like a return for myself, because I haven't been back since then. But for content purposes, probably not a good idea.
Not what you want to do.
No.
I mean, it does sell when you're in the back of a government cop car, you know.
I mean, it would get clicks.
It would get clicks, but that's not why you're doing this. You're doing this because you love sharing the history and in the stories with people that can't. I mean, you've got people in other countries that are in on your lives, other states. It's crazy the amount of followers that are in your lives. I've been, watching your lives for a while now because I've also been trying to get you to agree to an interview, which I'm glad I got you. And it's just the people that are calling things out. Like, I heard the thuds the other night on the live that it was just you and Savannah here, and I didn't see the shadow, but multiple people at the same time, it hit the comments all about the same time. There was a shadow. I didn't see it because I was at work at the time trying to get ready for the day. But like I look at it and all of a sudden there was a shadow. So like, do you think that like your people that are in your lives are like your co-investigators and catching stuff that you may have missed?
So when I do my lockdowns especially, like I set up a whole surveillance system that streams the entire time. That is for people at home. Because I have people that will sit there and watch those surveillance cameras for hours. And you may catch a couple things during a week's time that are really like, I don't know what this is. But that's my whole objective now. Because I've been to a lot of places, and when you're creating content as a paranormal investigator, it's a lot different than when you just went to places to investigate. And I try and tell people that all the time because, I mean, before I could just sit in a room with a recorder for 2 hours and let it run and not say a single word and then go back and listen to a 2-hour session. When you're creating content, you can't do that. It just doesn't work. So that's why my objective now is I'm not here to prove anything to anybody. I'm here to share these places that I go to and share the history of these places. But the end goal is for me to take people, right? Because I have people that message me all the time that, I'm handicapped, I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything, and I live my life every time you turn on your phone vicariously through you, right? So when you have that amount of impact, it kind of washes out everything else, and you realize that it's more than just ghost hunting. It's more than just investigating a haunted location and trying to get scared. It's these people are living their life through your content, and that's something that I'd rather hang my hat on than trying to have the best video the world's ever seen in terms of cuts in the paranormal evidence. It's just like, for me, it's more about giving people this opportunity to do something, because there's a lot of people that love the paranormal, but they're either too scared to go or they just can't afford to go. They got kids. I mean, life happens, and this is not a very cheap hobby. Mm-hmm. So,
no, it is not.
I spend the money because it's my business now, but I'm taking people to places that they could only read about before. And I think that's what really drives me now is being that window into each of these spots.
Enough where you've gotten sponsorships now.
Yeah.
You've got
Ghost Stop is a really good sponsor of ours. Ghost Gear has given us a ton of different stuff. I've worked with Discord, I've worked with Disney, I've worked with the Tennessee Titans. Like I've really broken a lot of the stigma around ghost hunting and the paranormal, because it's very hard to get stuff, especially I live in Tennessee, so it's very religious, which I don't talk about religion or politics in any of my content because it's just not the place for it. But it's a very religious area, and it's very hard to convince some folks, like, I'm not trying to conjure the devil in your basement. I'm just trying to see if there's anything there. And but I've been able to break a lot of that, and I think it's opened a lot of more opportunities for people to come after me because it's already been done once, right? It's only impossible until somebody does it, and I've already had these very unique opportunities with big corporations come through that it's just going to make it easier for people that come after.
Right, and you know, you were at, was it Fairfield, and there was a raffle ticket incident. I'm not gonna go. You don't even have to go into it, but like people were upset that you bought raffle tickets, and you didn't even win.
Well, no. So here's where it was confusing, right? So the only thing that I wanted was there's a guy named Jeff Fent, and he makes spirit boxes, and a Jeff Fent box is one of the coolest things you can get. I think it's probably one of my favorite devices because the way he builds them is so nice. So I could have spent the money and just bought it from him directly, but I'd rather have just given the money to charity and then won his box. So I spent the money on these tickets because it was all going towards charity, and I won a few different things because I spent so much money because it was going towards charity. The only thing that I kept was the spirit box. Like all of the other things that I kept were given back to my fans. Because like, do you really think I can't go spend $80 on what's inside of this gift basket? If I just spent X amount of dollars at this raffle, do you not think I can go just buy whatever's in the raffle? But I wanted to give to charity, and people got a problem with it, I guess. Actually, no, it's 2 people had a problem with it, and then that blew up, and then people went after those people, and then I got an apology from those people, but I don't accept apologies from people that rag me online for a week straight. So, where we're at.
And that's what, and I guess that would be my gripe in the paranormal community. There's just a lot of drama. A lot of times it reminds me of high school.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all out here trying to do this. Like, I know I will never be a big creator. You know, I write for a magazine, so I mean, I'm happy with, you know, if I get 50 views on a video, you know, that makes, on my YouTube, that makes me happy. But the fact that people are reading my articles and I get emails and stuff about my articles, that, you know, that's, or my interviews, like, you know, I interviewing you, I interviewed Jade from Ghost Club Paranormal just recently. Her issue is going to come out in January. So like, obviously I'm trying to build my credibility in the field. And when, you know, you've clearly built your credibility. Like, you can go on, you see your fans, and then somebody comes into your live, even before your moderators can like mute them, your fans are in there like, boom, it's just, and you're not, you tell them don't do that, you let the moderators, but your people defend you, like, and that just shows what type of community you have built. If there was one thing that you could change about how you've done things, what would it be?
Oh, my biggest regret is I didn't start YouTube soon enough. Like, I'm doing YouTube every week now, which it's a completely different approach, different animal than TikTok is. But if I would have started that consistently in the beginning when I started TikTok, then that would be astronomically higher. But I think that's the only regret I have, is I didn't start YouTube sooner. But other than that, I mean, I've built everything off of being as real and as myself as possible. And which I'm a very loony guy. I do some crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, everyone that watches consistently can believe that what they're seeing and what they're experiencing is not fabricated. I actually went and, when I first started, I teamed up with this group that they definitely fake stuff. But I did it out of I used to be I'll work with everybody kind of guy, and I've quickly learned that you just can't be that way, because there's a lot of people that envy, I think, is one of the biggest problems in this field, is people think that they should be in different positions, but if people put all of the energy they put into putting somebody else down into their own stuff, they probably would be doing a lot better. But they just focus so much on why they're so much better than everybody else, and then no one's watching what they're doing because they're just bitter. But I think for me personally, having that experience with this group that was when you watch their stuff, it's just like, it's not real. You know it's not real, and people know it's not real, but it's entertaining, so they still watch it. But after that point, I was like, man, that would be miserable. Like, you're going to these places, and you're just having to sit here and create these fake stories and sit here and make stuff happen, and everything's always off camera, you never catch anything on camera. That's not fun for me. But what is fun for me is when I have somebody sitting at home, and they're like, yeah, I called out of work for the next 3 days so I could watch this. Like, that just shows you the level of, like, I've had people call out for a week when I do lockdowns. They'll be there the entire week, and they're running on 2 hours of sleep, right? Those are people that I want to be involved in what's going on because they appreciate what goes into creating the content. Because at the end of the day, like I said, I'm just trying to give these people an experience that they necessarily can't get themselves. So like when I go to the Conjuring House or Waverly Hills, like these are people that people have read about or places that people have read about their entire lives, and they're literally just turning on their phone for free to watch crazy old me running through this place and investigating it in real time. And then they tell me to do something, and sometimes I read it and then I do it, right? So that's you're seeing that real-time interaction, and I think that's where a lot of creators miss the mark in the paranormal. Is there for a long time the stigma was you have your talent here, your community here, and there's a very clear divide between people interacting. And I really tried to just wipe that out, right? I'm very hard to get a hold of now because my phone's on Do Not Disturb because I just have way too many notifications. But there for first year and a half, 2 years, you could literally send me a message and I'd get back to you really quickly just because there wasn't as many people, but I still try my best to get back to people when I can. So I think that was the biggest thing for me, was embracing my community and making them feel like they were a part of something and not just, I'm going to create my stuff here and then you can watch from over there.
You're bringing them into the content, and I think that's great. I mean, it's interactive paranormal investigating for those that, I mean, it is a very expensive place. Let's use Indiana State Sanatorium. If you want a Friday or Saturday night investigation, that's $1,000 for 10 people.
Yep.
Sunday through Thursday, it's $700 for 10 people. Yeah, if you get a group of 10 people around, $70 to $100 doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, let's be honest, things cost a lot right now. Yep. So the fact that they can watch you for free, or you even do your subs.
Even if they're a subscriber, it's like $6 a month.
$6 a month, yeah.
It's cheaper than a Starbucks drink.
Yeah, which I saw you it's pumpkin season. Pumpkin spice season. So like, I had one this morning. It's okay. So I'm not afraid to admit it. I'll drink a pumpkin spice latte. But yeah, so like, yeah, $6 a month. And they get to be part of, like, the event, it's like they're here, and they're, they can give you suggestions. Hey, try this. You try it, it works. If not, it doesn't work. I mean, and I was watching that the other night. It was one of your free ones, but they were in, people were in, hey, try this, So it's great. And I know you're short on time. So is there anything else that you want to share before we end the interview?
No, every Thursday night is when I do my open live streams that anyone can watch. And then I usually do a subscriber live during the week at some point. Obviously event weeks make it a little bit different, but no, I mean, I guess if you've never watched me, you may like me, you may hate me, but I'll continue to be me.
All right. Thank you, Kalani. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.